ग्यालेक्सी न्यूज र यो छोटो ब्रेक पछि अघि हामीले भनेका थियौं हाम्रा अतिथिलाई लिएर आज हामी आउने छौं भनेर हाम्रा अतिथि हामीमाझ आइसक्नु भएको छ समीर
एकदमै र आज हामी अतिथिलाई चिनाउन पाउँदा एकदम खुसी लागिरहेछ उहाँ हाम्रा नेपालमा बस्नुभएका विदेशी मित्र हुनुहुन्छ र खास गरी उहाँले नेपाललाई आफ्नो घरै पनि भन्नुहुन्छ लुक डेभिस हुनुहुन्छ उहाँ राइटर अथर हुनुहुन्छ र he has been with us in Nepal for most of his life. So look, welcome to this morning live.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. I'm excited to be here.
Look, you know, when we were discussing about you, we were informed that you have been very active in the area of education, and you have been teaching in Nepal. Can you tell us something about that just to start the day?
Sure, yeah. I've taught in Nepal for a number of years. I went to Lincoln School as a student. I'm back here working as a teacher. I'm the director of the Athletics and Activities program here in Nepal. So I coach a lot of the sports teams and help develop those programs, as well as teach some English classes as well on the side. But yeah, I love education. I love working with children, and because they are tomorrow's adults, and you know, if we can inspire them in some way, then I think it's a very fulfilling job.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Look, you mentioned कि पहिलो birthday, first birthday नै दिल्ली बजारमा मनाउनु भएको थियो तपाईले. Ever since you've been here most of your life. If you have to describe Nepal in Nepali, how would you describe them?
I would say Nepalis are just incredibly kind individuals. I think I wrote my books. The reason why we're here is because it was kind of like a love letter to Nepal. And like its teachers, its teachings. I think Nepal has always been this land of magic and marvel. Of course, everybody knows about like the astounding natural beauty, whether you're in like Omaha, Nebraska, or Canberra, Australia, or wherever, you know about Mount Everest or Sagarmatha, right? But I think what you don't know is that this is also a land of myths, of legends, of spirituality, of self-discovery, of incredible beings, incredibly profound individuals, and I really wanted to kind of pay homage to also all the individuals that have touched my life while growing up here.
Look, अब तपाईको हामी बस्दाखेरि तपाईको किताबको बारेमा कुरा गर्नै पर्यो. मसँग दुईटा किताब छ तपाईको. तपाईले लेख्नु भएको अहिले हालसालै एउटा त पहिले पब्लिश भइसक्यो र नयाँ आएको. यो किताब के हो बारे त्यसो तपाईबाट सुन्न पाए अनि रमाइलो हुन्थ्यो. दुईटा किताब छ के भनिदिनुस् न हामीलाई तपाईले लेख्नु भएको किताब बारेमा.
Of course. So this is actually the first book I wrote. I wrote it after the birth of my son. It's called The Magical Monkey of Swayambu. And it basically follows the journey of our protagonist. Right. His name is Machig. Right. Machig is actually a Tibetan name. It basically loosely translates as Mother Earth. Ma means mother, Chig means one, so it's like one mother. So it can also be perceived as ancestral, that we all come from one mother. And actually today is Australia's Mother's Day as well, so I just want to give a shout out to all our
Best
mothers.
wishes from us also.
And actually this book is actually dedicated to all our mothers. And Magic, the cheeky little monkey, but brave and kind and generous in the story, resides in Swayambu, and his mother is very sick. And he has to heal her, and he goes to this Tibetan doctor on Manjushri Hill nearby to get like a quick fix pill, some special medicine to heal her, but he doesn't get any medicine, he gets a mission. And the Tibetan doctor says, you know, if you quest out and gather these life-saving foods, then you can save your mother. I don't know exactly what those foods are, but you'll know when you find it, sort of thing, right? So he then quests out, like through the four corners of Nepal, you know, down, I don't name any of the places, but like down the Trasuli River, or across like the Begnas or Fewatal, or into the Annapurnas, or across like the chaotic Tribhuvan highway, right? Where he's meeting like different animals, from like goats and vegetarian crocodiles, and immensely talented ants and stubborn yaks. And he's getting all these life-saving foods on this journey, but the foods are really a metaphor for the values that he learns. And so then when he returns, and I hate to kind of do a spoiler, then when he returns, everybody kind of, he's able to heal his mom. Everybody kind of proclaims him as the magical monkey of Swayambu, playing on the pun of like magic.
Right.
They're saying, oh, you're the magical monkey. And he says, no, I did it because everybody helped me, right?
Okay.
And I could only save my mom because we all kind of work together. And it shows kind of the unity of all things. And that we're all better together than apart, right? And anything is possible when we work together with compassion. So that's kind of the magical monkey of Swayambu in a nutshell.
Right.
If I can hand that back to you.
We'll just put it here for the time being.
Yeah.
You know, usually it's very important for a children's book to have good illustration because that's how they get attracted. And just now you shared the moral of the story. That's also amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I got a chance to look at those books. These illustrations are awesome. How did you find the illustrator, or how did this planning go?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That was probably one of the toughest parts of the journey, was like finding the art that would bring out the words even more, because the words are just pretty mediocre, but the art is incredible and they bring the book to life. So I actually wrote the Magical Monkey of Swayambu quite a long time ago, and it took me a long time to find the right illustrator. Wasn't easy, and the different samples that I saw I wasn't sure about. But then I just started thinking, like, I want more and more of it to be like a mix of like maybe Tibetan and Newari art, somebody who has like a very technical background in terms of like traditional tanka painting, but also who can kind of make things a little bit fun for kids, can bring it to life with some fluidity and some comedy, right? And a friend of mine who owns a tanka shop in Tamil, his name is Birendra, he connected me with Ratna Sagar Shrestha, who is the illustrator of these books. And Ratna just had this amazing ability to just kind of collaborate with me, read the words, and kind of bring it to life through these really entertaining and beautifully created illustrations. Yeah.
So look, it's not easy to write any book. There's no doubt about that. And now you are writing on a subject which is obviously foreign. Even though you have lived most of your life in Nepal, it's a foreign to. I mean, you have a Tibetan background, there's a Newari background. What were the connections or the networking that you developed to find the content for the book, or the background?
Yeah, the background for sure. So I think my background is actually my parents, they got married in Swayambu in the early 80s. So like Swayambu's kind of always felt like home for me, and I've lived there for a long time. And I do like my daily chores there, or I go up to the stupa, and like if you go up to Swayambu, like it's just such a place of inspiration. There's so much going on there. Of course, there are all the monkeys, there are all the pilgrims, there are the tourists taking their photos, there are all the young TikTokers shooting their TikToks, there are couples hiding away, there are people doing their martial arts or running the stairs. And then there's the pujaris inside, like where you're offering your candles or your rice or doing your morning rituals, and it's just all happening on this hill in our valley. And Swayambu really is the inspiration for these stories, in the sense that like the legend of the valley really came in from Swayambu. Swayambu itself is translated as like primordial wisdom of light, that it's self-arising light, right? And so like, I don't need to tell you the story of how Kathmandu came to be, but the legend of the lake and the lotus blossoming to reveal this beacon of light, and Manjushri draining at Chobar, right, draining the valley. And so then I kind of started, so I used research within the Swayambu Puran, like sacred texts, to learn a little bit more about the origin, the myths of Kathmandu, and then I also created some fictional characters as well. Like I kind of imagine that these monkeys are like, maybe they're actually originally like the original guardians of the light, kind of like these Jedi monkeys, that are here to kind of like be to take care of the light, right? And so like that's kind of how I was inspired to tell the story. And the legend of magic talks about the legend of the valley, but then it also is a story of good and evil.
Look, what we're going to do is we have to take a break, but what we want to do is after the break, we'll come back to you for the other part also. So right now, हामी एउटा छोटो ब्रेक लिन्छौँ. ब्रेक पछि लेखक लुकसँग हामीहरू फेरि कुराकानी कन्टिन्यू गर्छौँ. अहिले चाहिँ नि छोटो ब्रेक.
छोटो ब्रेक पछि पुनः स्वागत छ ग्यालेक्सी दिस मर्निङ लाइभमा र ब्रेकमा जानुभन्दा अगाडि यहाँले च्यानल चेन्ज नगरिकन हामीलाई हेरिराख्नु भएको छ भने अहिले हामी बाल साहित्यकार लुक डेभिससँग कुराकानीको क्रममा छौँ। उहाँले भर्खरै बच्चाहरूको लागि स्वयम्भू र त्यहाँको बाँदरहरू र हाम्रा विभिन्न मिथहरूसँग त्यसलाई इन्क्लुड गरेर एउटा बालिकाहरूको लागि एउटा किताब निकाल्नु भएको छ। Luke, we just talked about the book earlier. And you mentioned earlier that there are lots of characters, mythical, interesting characters. Which one is your favorite character?
I would say, can I choose? Can I choose 3?
Sure,
Please,
go for it.
first of all, let's talk about the characters, and then maybe you could say your.
Yeah, sure. So our protagonist is Machig, which I already said is kind of means like Mother Earth or Soul of the Earth, and Machig. So in terms of legend of magic, because I already talked a little bit about magical monkey of Swayambu. So Machig is kind of like the soul of the earth, and it starts off with like his mother, Amma, telling him a story of how the monkeys in Swayambu came to be, which weaves the Swayambu Puran, which weaves the legend of Kathmandu into the story. So like sun is setting in Kathmandu, they're on top of the hill, you can hear dogs barking in the distance and the far off humming of chanting monks. You know, the prayer flag, the wind is playing with the prayer flags, and he says, tell me the story again, right? And she goes back to the dawn of time. And the dawn of time is kind of so that the mythology, right, of like how the valley came to be. So she starts telling him the story, and she starts telling about how the monkeys also in Swayambu came to be from my own kind of mythology, right? And the monkeys were kind of created, you know, to be the guardians, let's say, the Jedis, as I said earlier, of the light, right? And they were also created because there was like an evil force that was trying to steal the light. And that comes in the shape of Kroda, who you see on the cover here.
Yeah.
Kroda,
So
anger,
yeah, Krod, so it's a Sanskrit word, right, that means anger. And Kroda could really be kind of likened to some of our, you know, modern day politicians. I think of a particular individual invading a neighboring country right now, right? And how, you know, greed and jealousy and envy create more suffering, create anger and disease and pestilence. And for Kroda, they create in his realm, in his world, a place where the elements have turned against them, right? So there's like famine, there's pestilence, there's disease, and Kroda thinks, if I can get my hand on the beacon of light, then my powers will expand, then my people will respect me, right? And then my land will be fertile again, like that, right? So he's like driven by this greed to get everything for himself. Like Kroda is, yes, he means anger, but he's about self-centered, he's about him, right? And magic is created through Manjushri's wisdom to be kind of the guardian of the light. So magic he's like tasked to defend the light against Kroda's evil, but not through violence, but through using tricks and some cunning and a little bit of cheekiness, right? And so he's got to do that. So it kind of, this is all really takes, while the Magical Monkey Swayambu takes place across the 4 corners of Nepal, through the rivers, mountains, and lakes. Legend of Magic takes place all in Swayambu, but at the dawn of time, like all in the valley, but at the dawn of time. So magic is our hero, and in the prequel, his name is Magic, but in the sequel, his name is also Magic, but he's like learning about this like previous incarnation, if you like, and he's inspired by this story in this life to go out and procure these life-saving foods to be like Magic in the story. So it's also kind of a message about how like our stories inspire us, right? That our myths and our legends inspire us. They inspired me to write the book, and they inspire Magic in the prequel, right?
So just so I mean, from what हामी just सुनिरहेको छौँ उहाँको बारेमा just सुनिरहेको छौँ भने एकदम किम्बदन्तीलाई पनि मिलाएर you know folklore and then your own creation, you come up with the books, right? Now what are your plans, like, you know, how have you like tried to take this book to the Nepali, you know, let's say children's realm or the education realm? Are you planning to take it a bit further beyond just, you know, the book is there, but how are you going to take it to the masses? Is my question to you.
Yeah, good question. If you have any tips, let me know.
But this is a start, I think.
This is for sure. This is a start.
Like the schools and all that.
Yeah, like so. I do book talks at different schools in Nepal.
Okay.
And that's an exciting way to kind of get started. And I would love to kind of also share like the legends and the characters of Nepal with the rest of the world as well, right? So as I said earlier, like a lot of people know Nepal as kind of this beautiful place physically in terms of the nature, but how can we also attract people around the world to Nepal to see kind of beyond the mountains and see kind of what lies beneath. And I think that's another kind of inspiration for writing these books, is so people can really see like there is also so much more to Nepal than the beauty.
Absolutely.
And that's another element. Yeah.
Look, what is the age group for this book readers, and where is it available? Is it available out in the market?
Yeah, good question. So for better or worse, my goal for the target audience was for anyone to pick up this book from the age of 8 to 108 and enjoy it.
Okay.
So, you know, in films, like they talk about 4-quadrant films where like you watch a movie and it's fun for the whole family. That was kind of like my goal for The Legend of Magic. Like I think the themes might be a little bit tricky for young kids, but once you get into, let's say, upper primary, upper elementary school, where you're maybe kind of grade 3 and up, so I would say age 7 to 8 and up, then I think that, you know, anyone can like use this as a bedtime story. And I think adults can also pick this up and potentially gain something from it as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of my goal, for there to be a little bit of something for everyone. Yeah.
What about you're talking prequel now, but then will there be another prequel or will there be another sequel? Are you working on a continuity for these 2 books now?
Yeah, I'm seeing how these go, and like I just released The Legend of Magic. We had a book launch last week at the Kathmandu Guest House, and in collaboration with the Museum of Nepali Art.
Yes.
And you know that was I was really happy with how that went. And so we'll see how it goes. I think, you know, it does take a lot of time, energy, and effort in order to create books. I would love for the messages to go out further and further around the planet, and we'll just have to see how that goes.
Fair enough.
You know, I think sometimes because we've heard these stories from our grandparents in our culture so many times that we tend to forget or kind of neglect it, even though we are very respectful towards our culture and all these stories. And let's say somebody like you who has seen it from a little bit different perspective than us, putting it down in a paper, I think it makes it easier for other readers from other part of the world, as they could relate it to somebody who do not belong to this culture. So we really appreciate somebody seeing and being mesmerized by these cultures and myths and putting it down on a storybook like this. It's our pleasure as well. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So what is your with this book out? I mean, it may be a very cliched question, right? हरेक किताबलाई कसैले के सिनेमा बनाउँछु भन्छ नेताले म चाहिँ यसलाई एनिमेटेड मुभीको हिसाबले म देखिरहेको छु कि मेरो माइन्डमा चाहिँ यो looks like an animated film, you know, that could be potential coming out that. Have you, I know it's too early, have you been approached or have you even thought about making this into an animated movie or series, or maybe you want to be connected with someone or team which could do this?
You know, in regards to animation, I mean, I think more and more people watch, you know, your Netflixes or your Apple TVs, or just like your TV, you know, whatever it is, right? People are watching maybe more than they're reading, for better or worse. But I mean, it's definitely a way that you can kind of get the message out a little bit more. And you know, but at the same time, like, animation is also difficult. Like, for all the things to come together to create animation, like, that's a challenge in itself, right? Like, you need producers who believe in the story, who have the right, who are not just in it to make a buck, right? That they're like really kind of invested in the messages, invested in the characters. So that, I think, is an important step. And then like animation, of course, is amazing, but it's very expensive, and it takes a lot of time as well. So I think a lot of things have to come together for an animation to happen, with regards to financing and directors.
This is a passing thought. I'm just giving a passing thought. That may be something you might want to think about in the future.
Also, in our show, we do talk about writers, and we bring about publications. Illustrator, we did mention, and I think this was published by Bajra
It was,
Vajra
yeah,
Publications.
yes.
And it's a beautiful book. And once again, I wanted to ask, I think I asked earlier too, so this is available in all the bookstores here in Nepal?
Thank you, you did. Yeah, thanks, Rita. Yeah, so this, I hope it's available in all the, we'll have to ask Vajra. I hope it's available in all the bookstores in Nepal. Vajra is in charge of distribution, but I think like all the major bookstores should be carrying The Magical Monkey Swayambu and The Legend of Magic.
And the price range of this book?
So they're 1,400 rupees
okay.
For these hardbound copies, each one. And then we also have like the box set, okay. So where the prequel and sequel come together in the box. Together. And so those are 2,800 rupees.
It would make very nice gifts, actually.
Yeah, that's what I hope, that it would be like, today's Australian Mother's Day, a good Mother's Day gift. Last week, for example, would have been a nice Mother's Day gift.
Yeah.
Last week, yes. Look, it has been a wonderful conversation. तपाईले आइदिनु भयो आज हाम्रो कार्यक्रमलाई शोभा बढाइदिनु भयो तपाईले तपाईँ आएर हामीलाई एकदम खुसी लागेको छ छोटो समयमा आइदिनु भएकोमा
अलिकति नेपालीमा चाहिँ के भन्नु लगाउनु पर्ला
म नेपाली बोल्न छु सर सो मैले त्यही तपाईलाई नेपालीमा यसो बोल्न प्रेरित गर्नलाई जाँदा जाँदै के नेपालीमा के हामीले जाने पार्टिङ एउटा गिफ्ट नेपालीमा के बोल्दै छोड्दिनुस् त
parting gift. I would say I think my punchline in these stories is like, do you believe in magic? Because in Kathmandu we do.
And in Nepali? Something in Nepali.
You can say goodbye.
I'm just very happy to Mopani Dere Kushi Lagyo. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show and being able to share my books. I really appreciate it. And please, read the stories. Let me know what you think. And be grateful, I think, for being in this incredible country.
धन्यवाद हामी अहिले छोटो ब्रेक लिन्छौँ गेस्ट अतिथिलाई बिदा गर्छौँ तर म र सरले चाहिँ फेरि अरू सेगमेन्ट लिएर तपाईँहरूको सामु आउने नै छौँ अहिलेको लागि चाहिँ छोटो ब्रेक